the silence was wrong. That was the first thing Captain Jake Morrison noticed when his ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Kepler 442b. New Haven Colony should have been broadcasting on every channel, sending cargo manifests, weather reports, and the usual chatter of 50,000 people living their lives. Instead, there was nothing but the cold hiss of empty space. Jake stood on the bridge of the Resolute, his hands gripping the railing as the view screen showed the planet below. Green and blue. Peaceful and beautiful. His communications officer turned in her seat, her face pale. "Sir, I'm getting nothing. Not even automated systems." "Take us down," Jake ordered, his voice steady despite the fear growing in his chest. The Resolute entered the atmosphere and flew toward New Haven's main settlement. As they got closer, Jake saw the smoke first. Then, the bodies. The ship landed in what used to be the town square, and Jake led his security team out into the colony. He had seen combat before. He had fought in the border wars against pirates. But nothing prepared him for this. Bodies lined the streets. Colonists who had been executed where they stood. Men, women, elderly, young. No one had been spared. Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez walked beside Jake, his weapon raised, checking every corner. But there was no one to fight. The attackers were long gone. Only the dead remained. "Captain," Sam's voice cracked. "My sister lived here. She taught at the school." Jake put a hand on the young officer's shoulder. They moved through the colony, documenting everything. The homes had been ransacked. The medical center showed signs of people seeking shelter, only to be dragged out and killed. The marketplace was scorched from weapons fire. Then they found the school. Jake had been dreading this moment. The door was broken open, hanging from one hinge. Inside, the small chairs were knocked over. Children's drawings still hung on the walls, bright and colorful, showing families and spaceships and alien friends from the Galactic Coalition. In the corner, behind an overturned desk, they found them. 32 children, huddled together. Their teacher, a young woman with dark hair, had her arms wrapped around as many as she could reach. Sam fell to his knees beside her. "Maria," he whispered. "Little sister." Jake felt something cold settle in his chest. Not rage. Not yet. Something harder. Something that would last much longer than anger. He activated his recorder and documented everything, every detail, every face. These people would not be forgotten. His technical officer called from outside. "Captain, we found something. The colony's backup server survived. It has the last transmissions. They gathered in the colony's communication center, where emergency power still flickered." The technician brought up the video logs. Jake watched as a fleet of ships descended on New Haven. Reptilian vessels, sharp and aggressive. Vrakin, Dominion. The colonists had tried to hail them, offering friendship, asking if they needed assistance. The Vrakin response was weapons fire. But even then, the colonists had survived the initial attack by hiding in shelters. When the Vrakin troops landed, the colony administrator had come out with a white flag, the universal symbol of surrender. The video showed him clearly, an older man with gray hair, holding the flag high. Behind him, other colonists emerged, hands raised, unarmed. They were negotiating, trying to talk, offering to leave the planet peacefully if that's what the Vrakin wanted. Then a Vrakin commander stepped forward. The translator caught his words. "Zarthek accepts your surrender. You will all be processed accordingly." What followed made Jake's blood run cold. The processing meant execution. Methodically, efficiently, the Vrakin troops moved through the colony, killing everyone they found. The video showed families pulled from their homes, workers dragged from their fields, children separated from parents. All of them murdered. The video ended with the colony administrator's last words, spoken into the camera before a Vrakin soldier shot him. "Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them we tried peace. Tell them we surrendered. Tell them the galaxy let this happen. Jake stood in the silent communications center for a long moment. His crew watched him, waiting for orders, waiting for direction. He had been in the military for 20 years. He knew the protocols. Document the scene. Report to command. Wait for the diplomats to negotiate. But something in him had changed in the last hour. He had seen too much. These weren't soldiers who had died in combat. These were farmers, teachers, children, people who had trusted the galaxy's promises of peace and protection. Copy everything, Jake ordered. Every video, every log, every piece of evidence. I want 3 backup copies sent to Earth immediately. And I want 1 sent to every member of the Galactic Coalition. Sir, his communications officer said hesitantly, shouldn't we wait for orders from command? No, Jake said quietly. The galaxy needs to see this now. Every species in the coalition needs to know what the Vrakin did to people who surrendered. As his crew worked, Jake walked back outside. The sun was setting on New Haven, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Sam stood in the town square, staring at the stars, beginning to appear overhead. What happens now, Captain? Sam asked. Jake looked up at those same stars, thinking about the Galactic Coalition and their endless negotiations, their diplomatic compromises, their belief that every conflict could be resolved with enough talking. He thought about the Vrakin commander, Zarthek, probably celebrating his conquest somewhere out there among those stars. Now, Jake said, now we go home and tell Earth what happened. And then we let the politicians and diplomats do whatever they think is right. But even as he said it, Jake knew something fundamental had shifted. Humanity had joined the Galactic Coalition 15 years ago, eager to be part of the great community of species, willing to follow their rules and customs. They had tried to fit in, to be good members, to resolve everything through peaceful means. New Haven had changed that. Some lines, once crossed, could not be uncrossed. Some crimes were too terrible for negotiation. As Jake looked at the ruined colony, at the homes that would never be filled again, at the school that would never hear children's laughter, he understood something about his own species that the galaxy would soon learn. Humans could be peaceful. Humans could be diplomatic. Humans could forgive many things. But the murder of children who had surrendered? That was not something humans would ever negotiate away. That demanded something else entirely. That demanded justice. The Galactic Coalition headquarters floated in neutral space. A massive station shaped like a flower with petals made from different architectural styles representing hundreds of worlds. Ambassador Amy Chen had walked its halls many times in the past 5 years, always with hope, always believing in the Coalition's promise of peace through dialogue. Today felt different. Today she walked those halls with evidence of murder in her datapad, and fury in her heart she barely kept controlled. The emergency session had been called within hours of Captain Morrison's report reaching Earth. The Great Council Chamber, filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Some floated in tanks of liquid, others perched on specialized seats, a few existed as pure energy contained in fields. The diversity of life was beautiful, Amy had always thought. Today, she barely noticed. Counselor Threndax, a being that resembled a massive moth with iridescent wings, called the session to order. His translator rendered his clicks and whistles into standard speech. We gather to address the incident at the human colony designated New Haven. The Vrakin Dominion has submitted a proposal for mediation and reparations. Ambassador Chen. Your response? Amy stood. She had prepared a speech, full of diplomatic language and careful phrasing. She deleted it from her pad and spoke from her heart instead. The Vrakin murdered 50,000 civilians who had surrendered. They killed children hiding in a school. They executed families in their homes. Earth's response is simple. We want justice. A murmur ran through the chamber. The Vrakin ambassador, a large reptilian creature covered in dark scales, rose from his seat. The Dominion acknowledges errors were made. We offer standard reparations. 3 outer colonies, mining rights to 4 asteroid belts, and formal apology. This incident need not escalate. Amy turned to face him directly. You call the murder of 50,000 people an incident? You offer us rocks and empty apologies for the lives of our children? Threndax's wings fluttered, a sign of distress. Ambassador Chen, please. The coalition has procedures for such matters. Mediation, reparations, reconciliation. In 10,000 years, we have never failed to resolve conflicts through these means. Then maybe, Amy said quietly, your procedures are wrong. The chamber erupted. Representatives shouted in 100 languages. Translators struggled to keep up. Threndax called for order, his wings beating rapidly. Ambassador, you cannot simply reject our processes. What alternative do you propose? We propose justice, Amy repeated. We propose that the individuals responsible for this massacre face trial. We propose that Zarthek and every officer under his command be surrendered to human custody to answer for their crimes. The Vrekeen ambassador laughed, a harsh sound like rocks grinding. Absurd. The Dominion will never surrender its military officers for trial by primitives. You've been in space for barely a century. You have no right to demand anything. Amy pulled up the video from New Haven, the one showing children being executed, and broadcast it to every screen in the chamber. Some representatives looked away. Others watched in horror. The Vrekeen ambassador's eyes narrowed. You test our patience, human. Accept our generous offer or face consequences. No. Amy said simply. That single word seemed to freeze the entire chamber. Threndax leaned forward. I do not think you understand, Ambassador Chen. No is not an acceptable response to coalition mediation. You must negotiate. Must I? Amy looked around the chamber. Then, let me explain something about humans that perhaps you don't understand. We spent 200,000 years as hunters on our world, not ambush predators, not pack hunters with claws and fangs. We were persistence hunters. We tracked our prey for days, weeks if necessary. We never gave up. We never stopped. And when something killed our children, she let the question hang in the air. We didn't negotiate. We hunted it down, and we ended it. Dr. Lisa Park sat in a small conference room with representatives from 12 different species scientific councils. They had requested this meeting to understand human psychology, hoping to find a way to convince Earth to back down. Please help us understand, said a jellyfish-like being floating in a translucent tank. Your species is threatening war over a single incident. This seems irrational. The Vrekeen offer compensation. Lisa looked at the assembled scientists, scholars who had studied behavior across hundreds of species. Let me ask you something. How many of your species evolved as prey? Several tentacles, appendages, and energy fields raised in acknowledgement. And how many as predators? More acknowledgement, though fewer. Humans evolved as both, Lisa explained. We were prey for millions of years, hunted by things with bigger teeth, stronger bodies, better weapons than us. Then something changed. We became the hunters. But we didn't have venom or claws or armor. We had endurance, intelligence, and memory. We could track wounded prey for days. We could remember grudges for years. We could plan revenge for generations. But you're civilized now. One of the scientists protested. Surely evolution is not destiny. You're right. Lisa agreed. We are civilized. But civilization doesn't erase instinct. It channels it. And there are certain triggers in human psychology that go deeper than civilization. The murder of children is one of them. In every human culture, across all of our history, child killers are considered the worst criminals. Unredeemable. Beyond negotiation. So you're saying humans will go to war over this? I'm saying humans can't not go to war over this. Our psychology won't allow us to do otherwise. To negotiate with child murderers would break something fundamental in the human mind. Back on Earth, Admiral Ben Carter stood in the war room with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Holographic displays showed the disposition of forces. Humanity's fleet of 12 warships against the Vrakin Dominion's 300. "The math isn't good," one general observed. "The math was never good," Ben replied. "But this isn't about math. This is about making sure the galaxy understands that there are some things humanity will not tolerate, regardless of cost." Senator Greg Walsh entered the room, having just come from an emergency session of the world government. The vote is in. 97% approval for military action. The people have spoken. 19. Ben nodded slowly. He had expected as much. The videos from New Haven had been broadcast worldwide. He had seen people crying in the streets, seen the memorials springing up in every city. Humanity was unified in a way it hadn't been since the first contact. "What about the coalition?" someone asked. "If we act without their approval, we'll be expelled." "Let them expel us," Ben said. "We joined the coalition because we believed in their ideals of peace and mutual protection. New Haven proved those ideals are hollow. Better to stand alone with our honor than stand with them and accept the murder of our children." The orders went out. Every ship, every crew, every Marine was mobilized. Reserves were called up. Factories converted to wartime production. Earth prepared for war. When the Vrakin ambassador heard about Earth's mobilization, he sent a final message to Amy. "You commit suicide. We have 300 ships. You have 12. Stand down or be destroyed." Amy's response was brief. "Come try." The galaxy watched in disbelief as a species of newcomers, barely out of their home system, refused to back down against a power that could crush them. Some species called it brave. Others called it insanity. The Vrakin called it opportunity. Zarthek himself sent a message to Earth, broadcast across all channels. "Humans think they are special. Humans think they are brave. We will teach them otherwise. We will make Earth regret their defiance." But as the Vrakin fleet mobilized, as their 300 ships prepared for war, something happened that surprised them. Other coalition species began quietly sharing intelligence with humanity. Jump routes, supply depots, patrol patterns. Some did it because they were horrified by New Haven. Others because they were curious to see if humans were truly as dangerous as their history suggested. And in that conference room where scientists studied human behavior, one question kept coming up. What happens when a persistence predator decides you're prey? No one had a good answer. But they were all about to find out. The galaxy expected a great battle. 2 fleets meeting in space, weapons blazing. The fate of worlds decided in a single afternoon. That's how wars had been fought in the coalition for thousands of years. Quick, decisive. Then both sides would negotiate, while their ships were still burning. Humanity had other ideas. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his ready room aboard the Resolute, studying intelligence reports. His ship was part of a task force of 4 vessels, hunting through space near the border territories. They weren't looking for the Vrakin main fleet. They were looking for one specific ship, Zarthek's command cruiser. "We have a signal," Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez reported from the bridge. "Jump signature matches the profile. It's him." Jake stood, feeling his heart rate slow rather than quicken. This was the moment. 3 weeks of searching, of following cold trails and dead ends, of patient waiting. His prey had finally appeared. "Don't engage," Jake ordered. "Just watch. Track where he goes, log every course change, monitor all communications." Sam looked confused. "Sir, we have him. We can attack now." "No. We're hunters, not fighters. Hunters track their prey until the moment is right." End quote. The Resolute followed Zarthek's ship from a distance, staying just beyond sensor range. Human stealth technology was new to the galaxy, designed with knowledge from Earth's submarine forces. The Vrakin had no idea they were being followed. 2 days later, Zarthek met with 3 other Vrakin ships near a remote nebula. The human task force watched as the commanders transferred between vessels, celebrating their victory at New Haven. Intelligence Officer Maria Santos translated their communications. "They're bragging about it," she said quietly. "Talking about how easy it was, how humans died begging for mercy." Jake felt the cold anger in his chest grow colder. Good. Anger that burned hot was useless. Anger that froze solid could be shaped into something useful. "Mark every ship at that meeting. I want full identification on every officer present." They were all part of it. For 6 more days, the human task force waited and watched. They saw Zarthek's group split up, heading to different sectors. They noted everything. Then, when the time was right, Jake gave the order. "Now we move." The attack was surgical. The Resolute and her sister ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at 3 separate locations simultaneously. Each human ship targeted 1 Vrakin cruiser, catching them alone, without support. Jake's target was Zarthek himself. The Vrakin commander's ship detected the humans and immediately tried to run. But human ships were faster. They had been designed for speed, not heavy armor. Pursuit was built into their nature. "Commander Claire Foster, prepare boarding teams," Jake ordered. Claire and her Marines suited up in combat gear, checking weapons and equipment. She had volunteered for this mission the moment she heard about New Haven. Her job was simple: capture, not kill. Humans wanted justice, and justice required trials. The Resolute fired precisely, disabling the Vrakin ship's engines without destroying it. Then the boarding craft launched, magnetically clamping onto the Vrakin hull and cutting through. The fighting inside was brutal but brief. Vrakin soldiers were strong and aggressive, but human Marines had trained for boarding actions since the age of sailing ships on Earth. They moved through the corridors in teams, covering each other, using tactics refined over centuries of combat. Claire found Zarthek on the bridge, surrounded by his officers. The Vrakin commander held a weapon, his reptilian face showing no fear. "You will not take me alive, human." "Actually," Claire said, raising her own weapon, "we will. Because if you shoot, I shoot back, and humans train to hit what they aim at. You might wound me. I will kill you. Your choice." Zarthek hesitated. That moment of hesitation was enough. A stun round from another Marine dropped him to the deck, unconscious, but alive. Across 3 star systems, the same scene played out. 3 Vrakin ships disabled, their commanders captured, their crews taken prisoner. The galaxy's communication networks exploded with the news. Humanity had drawn first blood, and they had done it with precision that shocked military observers. But the Resolute didn't return to Earth. Neither did the other human ships. They remained on patrol, hunting. There were 14 more Vrakin vessels that had been at New Haven. The humans had a list, and they intended to work through it. The Vrakin Dominion sent their main fleet to hunt the human task forces, 300 ships strong. It should have been easy. 4 human ships against hundreds. Except the humans refused to fight that battle. When the Vrakin fleet arrived at a location, the humans were already gone. They moved like ghosts, striking isolated targets, capturing or destroying ships one at a time, then vanishing before reinforcements arrived. Admiral Ben Carter watched the reports from Earth, a slight smile on his face. The strategy was working. Other coalition species were starting to ask questions. "How do the humans do it?" a Centaurian observer asked during a briefing. "They're outnumbered hundreds to 1. Because we're not trying to win a war," Ben explained. "We're conducting a manhunt. The Vrakin think like a military. Form a battle line, engage the enemy, achieve victory. Humans think like predators. Isolate the weak, strike quickly, disappear, repeat." The hunt continued for weeks. One by one, the Vrakin ships that had participated in the New Haven massacre were found. Some tried to hide in neutral space. Some fled to remote colonies. One tried to disguise itself as a civilian transport. It didn't matter. The humans found them all. Jake's task force developed a reputation. The Vrakin called them the Ghosts. Coalition observers called them persistent. Jake's crew called it justice. The breakthrough came when Maria intercepted a communication from a Vrakin officer trying to flee to the opposite end of the galaxy. He was pleading with his superiors for protection, claiming the humans would never give up. "He's right," Sam said, reading the translation. "Of course he's right," Jake replied. "We tracked mammoths across continents for weeks on Earth. We can track warships across star systems for years if necessary. They can't hide forever. Tracked hominids. We have decide." The psychological impact on the Vrakin military was severe. Officers who had participated in New Haven began turning themselves in to coalition authorities rather than face human hunters. The Dominion's fleet, so confident weeks earlier, became hesitant and defensive. Meanwhile, Earth continued its mobilization. More ships were being built. The entire population was united in purpose. Factories ran day and night. Every resource was dedicated to the war effort. Ambassador Amy received complaints daily from coalition species worried about human aggression. She responded to each the same way. "Return the war criminals. End this today. It's very simple." "But the Vrakin refuse," Threndax argued. "They will not surrender their officers." "Then we'll keep hunting them," Amy said calmly. "We can do this for years. Decades. Generations if necessary. Humans are very good at holding grudges." Dr. Lisa gave another presentation to the Scientific Council, this time with new data. She showed graphs comparing human military thinking to other species. "You see the difference?" she asked. "Most species view war as a temporary state, an aberration from normal peace. Humans view peace as the temporary state. We prepare for war even in peacetime. We study it, practice it, train for it. Because in our evolution, the tribes that didn't prepare were wiped out." "That's terrifying," one scientist said. "It should be," Lisa agreed. "Because there's something else you need to understand. Humans are also very good at making peace. We can forgive almost anything, work with former enemies, rebuild trust. But first, there must be accountability. First, there must be justice. Skip that step, and you get nothing but cycles of revenge. That's what we're trying to teach the galaxy." By the end of the 6th week, Jake's task force had captured or killed 17 Vrakin officers involved in New Haven. They transmitted each capture to both Earth and the Coalition, along with full documentation of each officer's crimes. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. Humans could be beaten in open battle. Perhaps. Their technology was still developing, their numbers limited. But hunting, tracking, pursuing an enemy across the stars with absolute determination, that was something humans had been doing since before they discovered fire, and they were very, very good at it. When Zarthek regained consciousness in the brig of the Resolute, he found Jake waiting for him. The captain sat calmly, looking at the Vrakin commander through the cell's force field. "Why did you kill them?" Jake asked. "They surrendered. They offered you the planet." Zarthek's eyes narrowed. "Because they were weak. Because we could. Because in the galaxy, might makes right." Jake nodded slowly. "I see. Thank you for being honest. That will help at your trial." "Trial?" Zarthek laughed. "Your coalition will negotiate my release. They always do. In a month, I'll be free, and you'll be the ones punished for this aggression." Jake stood up, preparing to leave. At the door, he paused and looked back. "You're wrong about 2 things. First, we're not asking the coalition for permission. Second, humans don't negotiate with murderers. You'll stand trial on Earth. You'll be found guilty because you are guilty, and you'll spend the rest of your life paying for what you did. That's not a threat. That's a promise." As Jake left, Zarthek called after him, "The Dominion will go to war for me. They'll crush your pathetic planet." Jake didn't look back. "Let them try. The Vrakin Dominion had ruled their region of space for 800 years. They had crushed rebellions and, conquered weaker species and expanded their territory through strength and fear. When the humans captured Zarthek and refused to negotiate his release, the Dominion's response was predictable. They declared total war. 300 warships, the entire Vrakin fleet, mobilized and headed toward human space. Their plan was simple: hit the outer colonies hard, force humanity to surrender, retrieve their captured officers, and teach these upstart primitives a lesson about power. The Galactic Coalition called emergency sessions, begging both sides to negotiate. Ambassador Amy's response remained unchanged. Return the war criminals. That's the only negotiation. The first target was the mining colony on Ross 128, a small settlement of 15,000 people working asteroid refineries. The Vrakin fleet sent a battle group of 30 ships. They broadcast their demands: surrender unconditionally or be destroyed. The colony administrator, a woman named Kate Morrison, who happened to be Jake's wife, responded personally. This is Ross 128. We don't surrender to murderers. If you want this colony, come take it. The Vrakin commanders were surprised but not concerned. 15,000 miners against trained soldiers? It would be over in hours. They were wrong. The Vrakin landed 10,000 troops, expecting to find frightened civilians. Instead, they found a fortress. Every mine entrance was trapped. Every corridor had firing positions. Every miner was armed and had been training for this moment since New Haven. The fighting was brutal. The Vrakin pushed into the colony's tunnels, where their numerical advantage meant nothing. In the tight confines, human defenders used knowledge of their own territory to devastating effect. Ambushes, improvised explosives, coordinated retreats that lured Vrakin soldiers into kill zones. Engineer Tom Bradley had spent the weeks since New Haven preparing surprises. Mining equipment converted to weapons. Refinery systems that could vent superheated gas into corridors. Emergency bulkheads that became crushing traps. He broadcast instructions to defenders throughout the battle. Section 7, they're pushing through. Vent the coolant on my mark. The Vrakin soldiers in Section 7 suddenly found themselves in a cloud of liquid nitrogen. The ones who survived retreated right into prepared firing positions. After 3 days, the Vrakin had taken only the outer sections of the colony at the cost of 8,000 soldiers. The defenders had lost 2,000 people, but they showed no signs of surrendering. Worse, human reinforcements were arriving. Captain Laura Chen commanded a converted cargo hauler named the Defiant. It looked civilian, moved like a civilian ship, and the Vrakin had ignored it as refugees fleeing the battle. That was a mistake. The Defiant drifted close to a Vrakin cruiser, broadcasting distress signals. When the cruiser sent a boarding party to inspect the civilian vessel, they found the cargo holds full of armed Marines. The trap worked perfectly. Humans stormed onto the Vrakin cruiser from the inside, capturing it in 30 minutes. Laura then used the captured ship to approach another Vrakin vessel, still broadcasting Vrakin identification codes. By the time they realized the deception, human combat teams were already breaching their hull. The Vrakin fleet commander watched his forces bleed for a minor mining colony and couldn't understand what was happening. Every tactical manual, every war simulation, every historical precedent said that overwhelming force should win quickly. But humans weren't following any known rules. Back on Earth, the trial of Zarthek began despite the ongoing war. The Galactic Coalition sent observers, expecting a show trial and quick execution. What they witnessed surprised them. Zarthek was given legal representation, both human and an advocate from his own species who volunteered. Evidence was presented methodically. Witnesses testified. The videos from New Haven were shown in full. Throughout it all, Zarthek remained defiant. I followed orders, he claimed. I did what was necessary for the Dominion. The prosecutor, Senator Greg Walsh, who had taken personal responsibility for the case, responded calmly. Orders to kill surrendered civilians? Orders to murder children? There are some orders that no being should follow. Your species has done worse. Zarthek spat back. I've read your history. You've committed genocide, enslaved each other, destroyed entire cities. You dare judge me? Greg nodded slowly. You're right. Humans have done terrible things. We had world wars, holocausts, atrocities we're still ashamed of. But you know what we did after? We put our own war criminals on trial. We established laws that said some actions are inexcusable regardless of orders or circumstances. We learned that accountability matters. That's what you're missing. We judge our own criminals harshly precisely because we know what evil we're capable of. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The verdict was unanimous, guilty on all counts. The sentence: life imprisonment, to be served on Earth under coalition observation. Not death, though many humans wanted it. Life, to serve as a reminder that justice and revenge were different things. The Vrakin Dominion's response to the verdict was to escalate. They sent more ships, hit more colonies. The pattern was the same everywhere. Overwhelming force met unexpectedly fierce resistance. Human colonies fought like cornered animals, and reinforcements arrived in the strangest ways. A medical ship turned out to be carrying Marines. A supply convoy was actually a wolf pack of armed vessels in disguise. A civilian evacuation was really a Marine landing in reverse, depositing troops behind Vrakin lines. Admiral Ben watched the reports and saw what the Vrakin didn't. They were winning battles, but losing the war. Every colony cost them thousands of soldiers. Every victory was Pyrrhic. Meanwhile, human industrial capacity was ramping up. More ships, more weapons, more trained soldiers entered service every week. They're thinking short-term, Ben explained to his staff. They think if they hit us hard enough, we'll break. They don't understand human psychology. The harder they hit, the more determined we become. Dr. Lisa was proved right in her predictions. Human unity had never been stronger. Political differences vanished. Economic competition became cooperation. The entire species mobilized like a single organism responding to a threat. On Ross 128, after a week of fighting, Kate Morrison stood in the colony's command center, exhausted but unbroken. The Vrakin had finally retreated to their ships, having lost nearly all their ground forces for control of a few mining tunnels. She broadcast a message to the Vrakin fleet commander. You came here expecting sheep. You found wolves. Every human colony will cost you the same. We can do this, as long as necessary. The question is, can you? The message spread throughout the galaxy. Human colonies weren't easy targets. They were death traps, staffed by people who would rather die than surrender to the species that murdered New Haven. Coalition observers who had predicted humanity's quick defeat began revising their assessments. Some species quietly started supporting the human war effort. Not openly, but intelligence appeared in human databases. Supply routes became compromised to Vrakin forces. Equipment malfunctions plagued Dominion ships at suspicious times. The Vrakin High Command met in emergency session. Their losses were unsustainable. They had expected a short war followed by negotiation. Instead, humans were bleeding them through 1,000 cuts and showed no interest in talking. We must increase pressure, one commander argued. Hit Earth itself, force them to negotiate. That would only make them angrier, another warned. I've been studying their history. When you attack their home, they fight even harder. The debate raged. But pride and momentum carried the day. The Vrakin committed their reserve fleet to a direct assault on Earth's outer defensive perimeter. 200 ships, the largest military force they could assemble. Admiral Ben received the intelligence with grim satisfaction. They're making it personal. Attacking directly, instead of raiding colonies. Is that good? One of his officers asked. For us? Yes. Because now we can fight the battle we've been preparing for. They think they're bringing the fight to us. Actually, they're walking into a trap. Earth's defensive network was extensive. Orbital platforms, minefields, automated weapons, satellites, and hidden bases throughout the solar system. More importantly, humanity's entire fleet was finally ready. 40 ships, newly built, fresh crews, and equipped with weapons refined through weeks of combat experience. The battle would be remembered as the turning point. When the Vrakin fleet entered human space, expecting to find Earth vulnerable, they instead found themselves in a kill zone. Human defenders used their knowledge of local space, struck from unexpected angles, coordinated like a single organism. Captain Jake led his squadron in a daring run through the Vrakin formation, breaking their cohesion. Laura's improvised tactics turned what should have been a disaster into chaos for the enemy. Claire's Marines boarded disabled ships and captured them, turning Vrakin vessels against their own fleet. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Vrakin had lost half their force. The remainder retreated in disorder. Earth had won its first major fleet engagement, but more importantly, had proven something to the galaxy. Humans could fight, and they could win. The Vrakin Dominion, facing catastrophic losses, mounting pressure from their own population, and an enemy that wouldn't negotiate, sent a secret message to the coalition. "We wish to discuss terms." The message reached Ambassador Amy in the middle of the night. She read it 3 times, then composed her response. No. The Vrakin Dominion's request for negotiations was rejected. Not ignored. Not delayed. Simply rejected. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Species didn't refuse to negotiate. It wasn't done. But humanity had made their position clear from the beginning. Justice first, then peace. Admiral Ben Carter prepared the final phase of operations. Earth's fleet, now numbering 40 warships, began moving into Vrakin space. Human forces advanced slowly, methodically, and with precision that surprised military observers. Before each planet was approached, humans broadcast warnings. Evacuation routes were provided. Civilian populations were given time to leave military zones. Some coalition species watched in confusion. Why warn your enemy? Because, Ambassador Amy explained in yet another council session, we're not at war with the Vrakin people. We're at war with the Vrakin government and military that committed atrocities. Humans learned a long time ago to separate criminals from civilians. The campaign through Vrakin territory was surgical. Human forces targeted military installations, command centers, and government facilities. Civilian infrastructure was avoided. When Vrakin soldiers surrendered, they were treated according to interstellar law. When they fought, humans fought back with overwhelming force. Captain Jake led his squadron to the military academy where Vrakin officers were trained. Instead of destroying it, human forces surrounded it and broadcast a message. This is Captain Morrison of Earth Defense Fleet. You have 1 hour to evacuate all students and teaching staff. After that time, only military personnel should remain. We are not here to harm children, even those who will grow up to be our enemies. We are here for your commanders. The Vrakin inside the academy were shocked. They had expected orbital bombardment, not warnings and time to evacuate. Young cadets were shuttled to safety while the military instructors remained behind, preparing for a fight that never came. Instead, human Marines landed, arrested the senior staff wanted for war crimes, and left the facility intact. The psychological warfare was effective. Vrakin civilians began questioning why their government had attacked a colony in the first place. Soldiers wondered why humans showed them mercy when the Dominion had shown none. Cracks appeared in the Dominion's unity. General Nick Hayes commanded ground operations on Vrakin Prime's second moon, a major military base. His forces surrounded the installation and began what they called patient pressure. No assault, no bombardment, just containment. They have supplies for 3 months, one of his officers noted. We could be here a while. That's fine, Nick replied. Time is on our side. Every day we wait, more Vrakin see that we're not monsters. We're just determined. Inside the base, The Vrakin garrison commander watched human forces setting up what looked like a permanent siege camp. They weren't even trying to attack, just waiting. The commander had studied human military history and realized with growing dread what was happening. Humans had once besieged cities for years. They would wait out any defender, no matter how long it took. The commander opened communications. "What do you want?" Nick's response was calm. "We want the officers in your command who participated in New Haven. Surrender them for trial, and the rest of you can go home. And if we refuse, then we wait. We have time." The surrender came after 2 weeks. Not because humans attacked, but because the garrison realized humans meant what they said. They would wait forever, if necessary. Across Vrakin space, the same pattern repeated. Military forces isolated, warned, given chances to surrender. Those who fought were defeated efficiently. Those who surrendered were treated fairly. Humanity demonstrated something the galaxy had rarely seen. Disciplined restraint combined with absolute determination. Dr. Lisa gave her final presentation to the Coalition Scientific Council. She had been documenting the entire war, studying both human and Vrakin responses. "The question you asked at the beginning was how humans could do this," she said. "The answer is complex. Humans are capable of extreme violence, yes, but we're also capable of extreme mercy. The key is accountability. Once someone is held accountable, once justice is served, humans can move on. We can forgive, rebuild, even become friends with former enemies. Earth's greatest allies today were our enemies in world wars less than 2 centuries ago. But first," a scientist asked, "there must be justice? Always." Lisa confirmed. "Skip that step, and you get endless cycles of revenge. Provide accountability, and you get peace. That's what we're trying to teach the galaxy." The Vrakin government collapsed 3 months into the human campaign. Not from military defeat alone, but from internal pressure. The Dominion's own people rose up, tired of a war their leaders had started over pride. Provincial governors began surrendering independently, handing over war criminals in exchange for peace. Captain Laura Chen was present when a provincial governor arrived under flag of truce, bringing with him 12 officers wanted for New Haven. "Our government lied to us," the governor said. "They told us the humans were aggressors, that New Haven was a military target. When we saw the evidence, we knew the truth. These men are yours for justice." The war effectively ended not with a final battle, but with a political revolution. The Vrakin people established a new government, democratic rather than authoritarian. Their first act was to formally surrender all remaining war criminals and accept terms. But humans didn't stop there. General Nick led the effort to help rebuild Vrakin military installations that had been damaged. Engineers arrived to repair civilian infrastructure. Food shipments came from Earth to help populations displaced by fighting. The galaxy watched in amazement. The same species that had waged war with such determination now pursued peace with equal vigor. "Why?" Counselor Threndax asked Amy during a private meeting. "You won. You could demand anything. Instead, you help them?" Amy smiled. "Because the war was never about conquest or revenge. It was about justice. Now that justice is being served, we can move forward. Humans don't hate the Vrakin people. We hated what their government did. There's a difference. Quote, with Escal, with Enders, with Winso." The New Haven Tribunal began 6 months after the war ended. Every Vrakin officer involved in the massacre was tried individually. Evidence was presented meticulously. Defenses were heard. Some were found guilty and sentenced to prison or execution. Others were found to have refused to participate and were acquitted. The trials lasted a year. Throughout that time, humans documented everything, broadcast every session, ensured transparency. The galaxy learned what accountability looked like. One particular case caught galactic attention. A Vrakin officer named Krell had been present at New Haven, but had video evidence showing he refused to fire on civilians and was arrested by his own superiors. The tribunal found him not guilty and apologized for his imprisonment. "This is justice," Senator Greg Walsh explained to Watching Billions. "Punishing the guilty. Protecting the innocent. It's not about revenge. It's about making sure the right people face consequences for their choices." 10 years after New Haven, Admiral Jake Morrison stood at the memorial built on the rebuilt colony. 50,000 names carved in stone. Children's playgrounds restored. Schools full of students again. A new generation was growing up on New Haven, learning what their colony had meant to humanity. A young Vrakin diplomat approached Jake nervously. She was part of the new government, born after the war, representing a species trying to rebuild its reputation. "Admiral Morrison," she began hesitantly. "I wanted to thank you." Jake turned to her, surprised. "Thank me? For not destroying us. Your species had every right to. We murdered your people. But you made distinctions. You separated those responsible from those who were not. You taught us accountability. Today, the Vrakin Republic is peaceful, democratic, and ashamed of what we once were. That only happened because you chose justice over genocide." Jake looked at the memorial, thinking of all the names carved there. "We didn't do it for you. We did it for them. And for ourselves. Humans learned a long time ago that revenge creates cycles. Justice creates closure. We wanted closure, not endless war." The young diplomat nodded. "Your people have changed the galaxy. The coalition has new laws now. Crimes against sapient life can no longer be negotiated away. Accountability is required. Other species are learning from you." "Good," Jake said quietly. "Then maybe New Haven meant something. Maybe their deaths created a better galaxy." He stood there a while longer after the diplomat left, thinking about the past decade. The war, the trials, the rebuilding. Earth had proven something to the galaxy and to themselves. Humanity could be diplomatic, but there were lines that couldn't be crossed. They could be peaceful, but they would fight when necessary. They could be forgiving, but only after accountability. The memorial had a simple inscription at its base, words that had become humanity's creed in galactic affairs. "To those who died here, your murders will not be negotiated. Your deaths will not be forgotten. Your killers will face justice. This we promise, now and forever." Below that, another line had been added after the war. Justice was served. Peace was earned. May both endure. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Humans would negotiate almost anything. Trade, territory, resources, political arrangements. But murder of innocents? That was non-negotiable. That demanded accountability. That required justice. And humans, patient persistence predators that they were, would pursue justice across stars and years and generations if necessary. They had proven it at New Haven. They had proven it in the war that followed. They had proven it in the peace they built afterward. The galaxy now understood something fundamental about humanity. They were not the strongest species, not the oldest, not the most advanced, but they were, perhaps, the most determined. And when that determination was focused on justice, nothing could stand against it. Not negotiation, not threats, not superior numbers. When humans said something was non-negotiable, they meant it. The Vrakin had learned that lesson the hard way. The rest of the galaxy took note and adjusted accordingly. A new era of galactic politics emerged, one where accountability mattered, where some lines could not be crossed without consequence, where justice was not just an ideal, but an enforced reality. Humanity had brought something new to the stars, not just technology or trade, but a concept that changed everything. Some things are worth fighting for, no matter the cost. Some crimes are too terrible to negotiate away. Some justice is too important to compromise. The galaxy was better for it, even if the lesson had been painful to learn, and Earth stood ready. Always watching. Always remembering. Ensuring that what happened at New Haven would never happen again to any species, anywhere in the galaxy. That was humanity's promise. And humans kept their promises.